a document that says that you are only representing yourself and that you are using your professional skill set in order to further the standard and that you are not representing your employer. It says that in black and white, and you have to sign that. And so everybody was arguing this and this, and we made no progress, and all these people were trying to promote their company's piece of shit, you know, that we're all incompatible, which is why we had a standards meeting to begin with, or standards committee to begin with. And so I talked to Wayne Fisher, and I said, I don't understand. People sign this thing, you know, that says they're not going to do that. And Wayne goes, yeah, they all sign it. And let me tell you what would happen. The first time they ever open their mouth and say something that is other than 100% the company's business line about basically getting their crap built into the standard, said, I guarantee you that what will happen is the first thing when he steps off the plane that he's going to hear from his boss is, you're fired. He said, every single person in this meeting, if they ever did what they signed their name to, the moment they get off a plane, it will be, you're fired. Mm-hmm. So it was like, oh, I get it. They're there. He said, why do you think a company is paying them to go to Rio de Janeiro and Tokyo? Mm-hmm. The only reason they're paying them is in the hopes that they can fuck up one of the competitors and delay the standard another 7 years.
Mm. Yeah, I don't have much experience with that. My closest experience was going to Washington to a meeting that was convened by the government, and a bunch of automakers there, and the people at the DOT were sitting in the back of the room. They had engaged some professional mediators who really didn't know much about the auto industry to run the meeting and present, you know, some stuff that the DOT thought that they would like to have as a container for the meeting. And at the very first break, all of the automakers are grumbling, I think I'm going to catch the flight out of here tonight. It's not worth sticking around for tomorrow. And nobody actually went up to them and actually said that during the session. I had a good mind to do so, but I guess I was not quite manic enough to do it. I didn't go back the next day either. But yeah, people have flown in from all over the place, from Audi and Volkswagen and GM, etc., for nothing.
Right. Well, sometimes there's side meetings where something can happen.
Yes, well, that's true. Yeah.
Sometimes.
But
a lot of times it's all preventative. I mean, the only reason you send a representative there is to make damn sure that they don't, do something that hurts your interest. In other words, 99% of it is to guarantee there's no forward progress in the standard. Mm-hmm. So, kind of the things that get standardized are the things that don't exist yet. Because once, people are selling something, Apple's, got their heels in the ground, and Samsung's got their heels in the ground, and Oracle's got their heels in the ground. I mean, they're never, ever going to agree to a standard that's anything other than what they got. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's why Microsoft managed to buy off all the committees and get, .X, standardized. I think the spec is something like 9,000 pages. I mean, I'm not making that up. It's like somebody basically determined that an engineer would not be able to read the spec within his lifetime. and that's the standard for portable documents. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fascinating.
And, basically Microsoft says, well, we already do this kind of, sort of, and everybody else says, nobody's, I'm never going to spend enough money to try to meet that spec, and it won't matter because Microsoft is going to break it anyway, and our stuff still won't interoperate.
Mm-hmm. Well, they do. OpenOffice produces DocX, and Pages produces DocX, but it's not perfect. There's all kinds of...
Yeah, that's an understatement. Well, and the worst stuff is basically Microsoft itself. I mean, tables have not been able to cross page boundaries since 1982 in Word. Mm. And, you can't spell check in Word, and paragraph formats don't work properly inside of tables, and, and then it's buggy as hell. I mean, we used to produce maintenance manuals in Word, and, or technical manuals for the products, and they were typically around 60 pages, sometimes 90 pages, and they had a bunch of chapters. And it was always broken. I mean, Word just crashed. I mean, Word cannot do documents that long, and the macros don't work, and the table of contents is wrong, and it's just buggier than sin. And then there was this one little document that I sell on Amazon. The thing's 16 pages long, and the word just crashed, and it put stuff on wrong pages, and it dropped the last line of paragraphs, and it would randomly change fonts, and it would change your bullets, and it's just unbelievably, staggeringly buggy, and everybody's like, "Oh, I always thought that was me. I thought I always made that mistake."
Mm-hmm. Which version are you talking about now?
Every version on the planet.
Every version
I
I've
always
ever
use the
used.
latest. What? I always use the latest one here. I probably got Word running right now. You just suffer with a piece of shit. Here, hold on. Oh, here's the other wonderful thing. Both Word and Excel, I've got 4 disks on my computer, and Word and Excel decide on totally their own volition, because no other app does this, that it has to spin up every single disk drive on my computer before it can do anything. Anything. There's no window. There we go. It's spun up all 4 disks. So now I can tell you what version of Word I've got. 14.3.8. Update 130913. So there you go. I'm running 14.3.8. That's on PC. And if you gave me another minute, I would tell you what version I'm running on Windows 7.
Yeah. I haven't run the Microsoft Suite since Ralph Hartnett stopped sending me beta copies.
Yeah, I ran OpenOffice for a while, but it was just so damn slow, and it didn't really accomplish the goal, which is that it still couldn't read and write emails compatibly with the rest of the planet.
Yeah, I stopped using it all. I started using Gmail for email 10 years ago and haven't really looked back.
Now it turns out what I use most of the time is InDesign, and then I export that to a PDF, and I never send anybody anything other than a PDF.
Mm-hmm.
But I use InDesign instead of Word. It's fabulous.
InDesign.
Mm-hmm. Adobe's InDesign. Comes with CS6.
Not familiar with it at all. So I'm on a Mac it says the Air is so portable.
Well, I run the InDesign on my Mac.
Uh-huh.
Adobe likes Macs.
Yeah. Yep. For producing complicated documents, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Well, thank you again for your time. And I guess we're going to sign off, and you're going to figure out what to do next.
Well, we're going to I want you to think about animation stuff that you can get. I can put
okay, and you think about what time you're supposed to send it 3 times or something to Dick and figure out when he's going to be available.
Oh, I thought he was going to send. I'm going to send him times, or I thought you were going to send your times.
Yeah, you're going to send him 3 times that you want because he says he has conference calls. It would make more sense for him to do it, but he asked you to do it.
Okay, well, all right. I'll send him an email. I told him my schedule's pretty open. What about your schedule?
It's open.
Yeah, okay. So our schedules are open, so it's really up to him. I'll just send him an email saying, tell us.
Yeah, tell him that he can pick 10, he can pick 10, noon, or 2.
Okay, yeah. All right. Fair enough.
Oh, right, animation. So vehicle collisions. I think the emotion and the verb has got to all be around the result, the benefit of the technology. And, it's not people texting in their car. It's not being told where the nearest McDonald's is, It's not being able to stream, Madonna impersonators while they're driving to the airport. That kind of crap that people are trying to load up.
Mm-hmm. Right. They can already do that. So it's not even a point of interest here.
Well, in fact, one of the funny things that I think happened is, cell companies are pushing like 4G data, which is actually pretty damn impressive. Mm-hmm. And, if the standards people fuck around long enough, I'll tell you exactly what will happen is that people will have apps on their phones that use 4G data. And they'll basically buy their own anti-collision apps. And the free market will just thrash around until, there's a winner.
Yeah.
Like SMS chat standards.
Right.
And they'll all just use their smartphones and the interface to the car, because there's already standardized smartphone to car interfaces with OHO and other stuff. And, the government can go fuck themselves along with IEEE. People will solve the problem on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll probably end up using the cellular data bandwidth because that's what's out there. And then the cell companies will scream and bitch that they need more bandwidth to the federal government, and they'll say, oh, well, that V2V band that you've had for 31 years isn't being used. Why don't you give that to us? And they'll go, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, that's a good point. And retrofitting the 5.9 gigahertz stuff into cell phones would be a lot cheaper than creating a whole new separate device.
Oh, one thing, I'm sorry, I got to tell you something that I looked up. So there's this thing called ultra-low power Bluetooth that Apple's promoting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it's fabulous. It is super low power wireless. And it has 3 ranges. It has it has the low ranges within a centimeter or 2, and that's used for electronic purchasing, mobile purchases, where you basically have to swipe your phone within a centimeter or 2 of a a big red dot to prove that you want to buy it. Okay, so that's called the close range. The intermediate range is from that to 1 meter. That's kind of you hugging your girlfriend kind of range, and then long range is anything over 1 meter. And it's basically 3 totally different protocols, and they do range checking. And so you can have one set of protocols that will require a particular range and another set of protocols that require a different range. But and so the power is range sensitive. So if you don't have to go very far, it's like ultra low power. So it turns out that you can power a device with a watch battery for a year on ultra low power Bluetooth. For a year. So here's what you get. You get a video camera and a suction cup, and it's got 2 AA's in it, and you suction cup it to the back or the side window, and you're done. That is your video feed to your phone app.
Right, but you need 6 of those.
No, you don't. The more the better, but you don't need 6. You put 1, and now you can proxy the vehicle behind you. You put 2 on your left, 1 in front, you can proxy the vehicles coming at you. And then you say, well, that's the camera. What are you going to do for ranging? Oh, well, we'll add $1 to it, and now we can do sonar ranging like your backup sonar. That's good to about 60 feet. The sensors cost less than $1. It's just a ping. It's just an ultrasonic ping. So, yeah, let me get 4 cameras, that cost $49, and a suction cup, and I put one on each side, front and rear, and they got the camera and a pinger. It's not LiDAR, okay? And now I've got 100% fully operational system with proxying, range measurement, crowd sharing, lane detection, everything. And it basically runs on my smartphone. And then, oh yeah, once a year I got to swap out the AA's on my suction cup phones. And they're inside the window; they're not on the outside, so they don't get stolen. And if your 4-year-old grabs it off the window and sticks it in his mouth, you don't really care. I mean, so we're down to 3 cameras. So what? So there's an interesting thing on proxying, which is the way proxying works, is that you proxy the cars you see, and you transmit it. People know it's a proxy. And they know where you are, and they know where the car you're proxying is. And it turns out if they're closer, if they have a better proxy, then they start proxying too. So now the same car is being proxied by 2 transmitters. So you're looking, you have to process every packet you get. So you look out there and you go, oh, look, somebody else is proxying the same car I am. Is his proxy better than mine? It is. I'm going to just shut up. So we have totally automatic proxy handoff. So bandwidth is saved because you don't normally, because basically only the best vehicle proxies. And if 2 or more vehicles want to proxy a 3rd vehicle, well, go for it. So we have proxy handoff, and it's sort of like built into the system. You don't have to do anything special. The data that's already there is sufficient to do the proxy handoff. So I understand what you're saying. I decided I like your time of flight thing better than I did before. I think you're onto it because you're right. You don't need any other sensors. If you're absolutely positively time synced, every message that comes in, you know how far away they are.
Yeah. Just the install, the battery replacement, everything. Just if you can do it that way.
Right, but your thing is perfect. You plug it into the cigarette lighter, and throw it on the car seat or you know, suction cup it to the windshield because then it's got an antenna in the right place.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I mean, here's another stupid example. I read all of these specs, and nowhere does it say what part of the vehicle you're transmitting as your reference point. Center, front, side, bottom, middle. Nobody spec that.
That's funny.
Right.
That's very funny.
Hello. So my spec says that the way it works is you put the vehicle in a rectangular box, the smallest rectangular box that includes the vehicle with the exception of the rear view mirrors. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And the point you transmit is the exact middle of the front of the rectangle at road height. That's the exact three-dimensional point you're required to transmit for every single vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
We're done. We're done. By the way, you also transmit the size of the vehicle. There's a little 4-bit code for the vehicle size. Mm-hmm. So if you don't know much about the vehicle, that single point tells you pretty much how big a vehicle it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So the amount of crap that they've just totally forgotten about in the specs that are out there is just huge.
Mm-hmm. That's an obvious one. 16 feet's a lot. That's typical.
Well, and you know, the other thing is V2V won't work without lane maps. It just plain flat out won't work. I don't care what anybody says, it won't work. I mean, all you have to do is think about it for a couple of weeks, and it's, you know, and drive around. As you're driving, you go, suppose I had a system with no lane map. What would happen in this intersection? And the answer is, it'd be a fucking nightmare. Here, picture driving. You're driving on roads today, and there are no lane markings on the roads. None.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? No turn arrows, no lines painted on it. You tell me how well traffic will work. Okay, it'll work some of the time fine. It'll work most of the time kind of okay, like Italy, which has no lanes. And some of the time, it'll just fail outright, which is why the accident rate in Italy is 20 times ours, because they don't have lanes. Okay? Mm-hmm. So that's everybody else's system. There are no lanes. There's just, oh, this guy's coming this way. Oh, the guy's going over there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think about that a little bit. Elimination of lane markings is a risk factor. You know about the trials that have been done in Europe. A bunch of medium-sized towns have removed the signals from the center of town where they've which would become chronic intersection backup areas. You know, they get these 10, 20-minute backups that occur every day because of the signals, and they take the signals away, and the accident rate goes down, and the backups go away.
Well, the accident rate won't stay down. The reason it goes down in the short term is that people get really nervous because there's no signals. When we have power outages here in Palo Alto and Menlo Park, the traffic improves because it turns out El Camino goes way faster when people make their own decisions about going through the intersections. It turns out the lights actually dramatically reduce the average speed on El Camino Real, which is, you know, this giant 6-lane, 8-lane highway. People are better off with no signals whatsoever. And by none, I mean none. I don't mean blinking red lights. I mean none. You know? And you know, you laugh. You go, why do we have all these signals? The traffic works way better without them. Well, now in Italy, the problem is more interesting in Italy because they put in signals and none of them work. The signals are backwards. I mean, basically, they're so badly engineered that the only way that you can make them work is to ignore them. And then because they're known to be so awful, that every intersection with a signal is known to be incredibly high risk. Mm-hmm. And so people are like scared to death of them. And so then the Italians go, look, see, we put this signal in and the accident rate went down. We were in this town and they had this weird road and they had the green light and it wasn't done right and the cars couldn't even see each other that were in the green light. And then you had to make this like this very sharp turn, you know, this jackknife turn to get, you know how Italy hills are, up the road. Mm-hmm. And you couldn't make it on the green light. You could only make it on the red light. And so you go to this intersection, you discover that every car could only go when the light's red. You can't go when the light's green. And it was just the weirdest thing. And we lived there for 10 days. And it was absolutely hilarious. There was this intersection you could only go when your light was red.
That was because what why was that exactly?
Because when the light was green, the other people were where you had to go to make the turn.
Oh, I see. Because
and then when the two lights were green, the cars that were going through the intersection couldn't see each other. And so you didn't want to go through the green light because you could hit each other, and both cars had the green. So what you do is you wait until the guys who might hit you have a red, and then you go. Well, when they have a red, you have a red. You know, it's just like, I mean, it was, you almost had to be there to sort of understand how incredibly broken it was. And but they were all like that. You know, I mean, that's why they do roundabouts. They're the only, in Italy, they're the only thing that actually works. The signals don't work. You know, and partly the roads are just so weird and complicated. You know, even in Paris, sometimes we'd have these signalized intersections, and you couldn't figure them out. You know, because there's like 12 roads all intersecting with different lanes, and you can't even tell where you're supposed to be in the right turn lane. And then they got like a couple signal heads. And you're like, I have no idea how the signal head is associated with these lanes. You know, and so what happens is you sit there until somebody honks at you, and then you go, oh, I guess that means I should go. You go really slowly, you know. And you go, I don't know, can I turn left on this light? Can I turn right on this light? No. Oh, okay.
That's where I learned to drive, actually, when I was 19 on a motorcycle.
What, Paris?
Yeah, Paris.
Paris is not that bad. Paris roads are actually fairly, I found them to be fairly good. Of course, a lot of them are one way, and so you don't have a lot of options.
Well, they do honk at you when lights, when you've got a red light, if there's no cross traffic, and they're basically thinking, well, what are you, stupider than the timed light? Just go. Can't you see there's no traffic?
Yeah, right. What's the matter with you, dummy? Yeah.
But they're also very aggressive. So I went into the circle opposite the Eiffel Tower once, and the lights failed just as I was approaching the intersection. All the cars moved in at once,
and then stopped.
Yeah.
Right. That, by the way, that particular roundabout is the one that I used to calculate the worst case of 250 cars had to communicate at once. And I actually got a photograph of the intersection and counted the damn cars in the photograph. It took me like an hour and a half because I had to blow it up and then number the cars to see how many, you know, needed to communicate. Yeah, so that's sort of a famous roundabout because it's more or less hopeless.
Do you have that image to? Because that'd be a good image to show your.
No, I might have it somewhere. I might be able to find that for you. It was a pretty shitty image, but it was good enough I could count the cars. Graphics. Let me look. Hold on. I have like 12,000 files for V2V, you know, so it can take a while to find stuff. Huh.
When did you start working on this area?
Well, I was thinking about some of this, you know, for like 10 years, and then I finally sort of got serious about it about 4 years ago. And I just sort of sat down and kept writing and writing. And then, you know, what happened is I'd be working on it, and I'd write it, and then I finally go, holy shit, this isn't going to work. Crap. You know, and then I have to figure, well, how would you solve this problem? You know, and so then you sort of start on, you go, well, you could do this. You know, but then you go, well, yeah, but if I do this, then I got to do that. And then that's not good. And then you say, well, yeah, but I could solve that by doing it this way. And so then you end up with this sort of whole, you know, laundry basket of stuff. And you go, yeah, but if I do this, then I can do that. And if I do that, I can do this. And if I do this, I can do that. And then if I do all of these things, wow, I finally solved this problem. And, you know, and then it starts to build. Like, you know, I didn't figure out until really late that if you're using time slots, that you can use the fact that there's time slots as precision timing. And then it was later that I figured out that's how you detect hackers, is the time of flight. I mean, I didn't start with that. That was sort of one of the artifacts that came out of having time slots. So then I said, well, how about the time slots aren't well synchronized? And I said, oh, I bet I could come up with a protocol where the time slots all get synchronized among the vehicles. So I screwed around with that for a while and came up with a kind of an ingenious way to do that. So I said, another patent, how to synchronize time slots in a mobile application. I mean, by synchronize, I mean like sub-nanosecond synchronization. So another thing on the technology. So all of these guys have this thing where we send a message and we have to have our vehicle ID. You know, our license plate, our VIN number, our IPv6 address, our MAC address, all this shit to identify the vehicle. None of what you care about. None of what you care about. The only thing you care about is this guy going to hit me.
Yeah.
So what I realize is that if you send position information for a vehicle, you're done. That's the vehicle ID. You can't have two vehicles in the same place at the same time. So if I send my vehicle ID 10 times a second, it's guaranteed globally unique. I am the only car at this spot. Okay?
Yep.
So I'm done. That's my vehicle ID, is my location. Well, you have to send a location. That's what you send all the time. That's what V2V does. It sends your location. So I don't need any additional data clogging up the bandwidth for vehicle ID. I don't need a frame ID. I don't need a frame counter. I don't need packet ID. I don't need a packet counter. I don't need a VIN. I don't need a MAC. I don't need an IP address. I'm done. Well, if you're not doing time slots, you can't get that.
Yep.
You know, and then you get this case. Well, who assigns the vehicle ID? Well, they haven't figured that out. There's some magic entity that is going to assign some vehicle ID, and countries can't agree on that, and so we're not going to have standardization across country on what the vehicle ID is. So they already have non-interoperability on these standards. And then they say, oh, well, you have to have privacy because we can't have people sending vehicle ID. Somebody could follow you, and then they would know where you go and where you work and where your girlfriend lives and you're having an affair. And, oh, my God, we have to encrypt the data. Okay, we're now going to encrypt all the data in every packet in order so that the vehicle ID you have to send can't be read. Oh, but now we're going to use digital certificates in order to verify that the guy sending is sending and that the receiver can use it. Okay, great. Digital certificates work fabulously when you've got at least 8,000 bits in a message. Oh, no problem. We've already loaded up the packet with so much shit, we already meet the minimum for encryption to work.
Yeah.
Okay, so who is it who's going to issue these digital certificates? Oh, we forgot to figure that out. The same people who are going to put in all that roadside equipment that doesn't exist.
Sounds nuts.
Right.
It is nuts.
It's California high-speed rail on a global basis. You can't afford it, it'll never work, and nobody's going to write it anyway. Other than that, it's great.
No. Got a lot of people to see, a lot of engineers to see the world. That was the main point.
Well, I talked to a guy who's a full-time engineer for, I'm going to remember the name of the company in a minute, one of these gigantic engineering firms. You know, and the states hired them to build high-speed rail. You know, they got, $250 million and they spent it on engineering. Parkins, what's their name? It's a hyphenated name. Something Parkins.
Oh, one of the big construction companies, right?
Yeah,
along
huge.
with Bechtel and Parsons Brinckerhoff.
Yeah, anyway, so they hired him. So this guy is working full-time. He's been working for like a year and a half or 2 years designing high-speed rail. Guy is totally into it. He's telling me how fantastic it is. They can't derail. They can't get in an accident. All this stuff that's just total foolishness crap, okay? And what was the key point? Hold on a second. So I'm basically ranting with him about how it's never going to work, and he finally says, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because it's going to keep me employed until I retire, and then I'm going to have a pension. So it doesn't matter that it doesn't work. And I said, you don't care that you're working on this thing that's never going to work? And he goes, no, it's not my problem. That guy's a senior engineer. He's paid a lot of money. Man, if I had a guy like that working for me, I'd fire him. I mean, I told my engineers that they have an ethical responsibility to practice their craft. And they have to tell, if something's not working right, they have to tell their boss. And their boss can do whatever he damn well wants with the information, but he has an obligation to tell his boss.
Yep. I agree. Professional responsibility.
If you're an engineer, you're a professional. What do you think that means?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, but, so I started working on this full time, and you just, every time you keep saying, well, this isn't going to work. what does everybody else do? You know, I mean, my copy of IEEE 802.11p is so well thumbed, it's sort of circular. You know, and you know, and then you download J2735. You know, and it's like 400 pages, and it's just a laundry list. Well, here's what a truck carrying croissants is supposed to send. Here's what a police car driving backwards is supposed to send. Here's what you send when you're crossing a bridge that goes between two countries. And, you know, they have stuff in there like what the currency you're using is to pay a toll. You know? And which of 196 different this is true, like which of 196 different classifications describe the load in your truck?
Wow.
Because, you know, on some roads, some of the time you're not allowed to carry live chickens or something, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And they put all that crap in these packets.
Yeah. Okay.
And, you know, it's like you said, we don't care that there's no way to transmit it and nobody to receive it. Our job is simply to load it up with this data, you know, the message formats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, not Roy, I'm sorry, Jeremy. What is his name?
Justin.
Justin. I'm an idiot. Yeah, Justin says, well, you know, the problem is that 802.11 at 5.9 megahertz is just ancient. You know, we should be at 60 gigahertz. So he's basically saying, yeah, it doesn't matter if it's fucking inefficient. We will just swallow up some more bandwidth somewhere else in the spectrum.
Uh-huh. And
he's totally wrong. He says, yeah, the internet works because things are really inefficient. He's totally wrong. Look at stuff that's successful. Hollerith, ultra efficient. ASCII, ultra efficient. PNG format, ultra efficient. JPEG format, ultra efficient. MPEG-4, ultra efficient. GIF files, ultra efficient. Okay? PDF portable document format, pretty damn efficient considering what it does. No, the reality is successful standards usually succeed because they're more efficient than everything else. Mm-hmm. That is the hard, cold reality that a lot of those guys who want to code in Java haven't figured out.
Mm. Yeah. Yep. Time to code. That's the most important thing. Java is...
Yeah, full employment for coders.
Yeah, I suppose. I suppose if you're building certain kinds of systems that Java can be eventually pay back. But I don't know. I haven't coded for 15 years. 20 years almost now.
And if you look at like 802.1, you know, Ethernet, those packets are really efficient. Mm-hmm. They made almost every single bit in that count for something. Mm-hmm. So the technologies that are actually successful are, in fact, exceedingly good at solving the problem they are intended to solve. Mm-hmm. JPEG solves the problem of still image coding. You know, MPEG solves the problem of video image coding. GIF solves the problem of graphics coding for web pages. Mm-hmm. And, you know, 802.1 solves the problem of sending frames. Guess what? You know, YF solves the problem of vehicle-to-vehicle anti-collision communication, and 802.11 doesn't have a chance ever of solving that problem. Mm-hmm.
Makes sense to me. It sold me.
Oh, fax. There's another one. Fax data compression. Mm-hmm. Unbelievably efficient. Mm-hmm. Huffman coding. The mathematically most efficient possible way of coding black and white documents. Mathematical proof. Huffman coding. What does fax use? Huffman coding. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So guys who will tell you efficiency doesn't matter have not studied history of technology at all. Mm-hmm. Mm. They are wearing the emperor's new clothes.
Well, at 60 gigahertz, you're running all kinds of other problems, wouldn't you? In terms of reduced ability to be
beer.
Sorry?
Yeah. Water. It doesn't like water. But actually the fact that it has very high attenuation in the atmosphere is sort of good. because it means that instead of doing really sneaky power management like you have to do with 5.9 gigahertz, there is nothing you could do to get it beyond about a kilometer. So it's not awful. I actually like 60 gigahertz. It has a lot of advantages. But from a technological maturity standpoint, you know, it's a decade or more away. And nobody knows what to do with it.
Well, getting around corners is even more problematic, right? You're not.
Right. Yeah, the multipath is just unbelievably, like, nobody has the faintest idea how multipath works for 60 gigahertz, except that they do know they don't understand it. And I don't know how severe water is, but it's pretty severe. But it comes back to maybe that rear-ender collision of the 75 vehicles in Ohio. You know, I don't know what the range would have been under that exceedingly heavy fog. My feeling is at 60 gigahertz, it probably would have been far enough, because you probably don't actually need more than about 100 feet, really. Even though you'd really like to have a lot more, it may not be absolutely required. So I kind of like 60 gigahertz, but you know, it's just out there. I mean, it's future.
Yep, it's out there.
We bought a wireless bridge at 60 gigahertz. It's a really simple wireless bridge. It's got an Ethernet plug on one end, a 1 gig Ethernet plug, and it's got another gig Ethernet plug on the other end, and then it's wireless in the middle. And we just go across the street with it. It's kind of a big street, but we just go across the street. $27,000. That's what the hardware costs.
Wow.
Just for the radio. The radio at 60 gigahertz got $27,000. So, you know, don't tell me we're going to have 60 gigahertz in $49 consumer products in the near future. I mean, we will, but not in the near future.
Right.
By the way, radio works really well.
And it was cheaper than digging up the street.
It sure as hell was. $27,000 does not trench very far under a street.
Especially a big main road where you're disrupting traffic.
Well, it was, and the other problem was we had to go underneath a fountain and hardscape and private property and over the top of an apartment building, and you know, it wasn't just under the street. It was a whole page of property owners and different problems. Yeah, it probably would have been about $200,000 if we actually had to run fiber in a pipe. And probably would have taken 2 years.
Yep.
Yeah, we just trenched underneath a stupid bus station in Santa Cruz, and it was about $120,000. And all we did was go underneath the damn asphalt bus lane.
In the bus
lane? And the city owned the whole thing.
And the trench was how long?
Well, we had 3 trenches. It was probably 95 feet total, maybe a little longer than that.
So
popped up in 4 places. You'd have to saw cut the concrete and put a little box in. But you know, it was just 2 lanes of asphalt, a bus lane, and you know, the city owned it. I mean, it was, you know, like, here was the permit process. Don't worry about it. You're permitted. That was the permit process. What day are you going to do it? I don't know. How about the 14th? Fine. We'll send somebody out with some cones.
$1,000 a foot. How deep down does this trench have to go?
Oh, you know, $1,000 a foot. How deep were we? You got to be 48 inches minimum. There's some code requirements.
Yeah, you got to cut the pavement and then replace it.
Yeah, but I mean, it was still, you know, the underneath trenching. Yeah, but you still end up cutting these holes and replacing it in the concrete and the boxes. And, you know, it seemed like an awful lot to me. But, you know, you try hiring a trenching company. There's 2 kinds. The guys who won't work for you and the guys who are really, really expensive.
And the guys who are really, really expensive will do it when you want it done and get it done in time.
And they charge an incredible amount of money. But as one guy said when we were looking at a trenching project underneath a bus terminal out in Sacramento, and there were these gas line warnings everywhere. There were these, the little signs, danger underground petroleum.
Mm-hmm.
And we were looking at the different dates on these things, and we figured out there had to be like at least 6 different lines put in, like at least 6 different dates, some of which probably went back to the 20s or earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So you really wonder how good the location was.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of the guys who were doing the walkthrough basically said, ain't no insurance you can buy that's going to cover you if you hit one of these gas lines.
Mm-hmm.
No insurance you can buy is going to cover you if you burn down this brand new bus station and blow up the homes across the street.
Mm-hmm.
And they wouldn't bid it. Well, there were like 40 guys on the walkthrough, and they were furious. Nobody bid it.
Huh. Wow.
I wouldn't bid it. I went back and said, I'm not going to have that on my conscience.
Right.
And you know what? I don't know how to avoid hitting a gas line. I personally don't know how to avoid it. And when I talk to the guys who do it professionally, they say, we don't miss them. We just hit them and hope for the best.
Mm-hmm.
We do our best to miss them, and we don't miss them.
Right.
We hit them, then we fix them.
You hit them, and right, exactly. I guess most of the time they hit them and it doesn't spark off. It just starts pouring out gas.
Right, or or natural gas or something, and also they have feeders that they go out and they can tell that they bumped into a pipe, hopefully early enough that they haven't penetrated it,
Mm-hmm.
which means they've scratched it, which means you have absolutely no idea how weak it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There was this huge flood down at the end of our block about 15 years ago. On El Camino Real, huge flood. It basically destroyed all of the cars in 4 car dealerships. I mean, ruined them. It was more than 3 feet deep.
Mm-hmm.
Flooded all the businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Completely closed El Camino Real. Okay, so how did the flood happen? So I went out there and looked and took photographs because it was at the end of the block. And they were so confused. I just put on an OSHA vest and a hard hat, and nobody told me I wasn't allowed to go out there. And it turns out what happened is when they put in cable for cable TV, they have these little trenching machines that make this little 3/4 inch wide cut,
Mm-hmm.
and it's 8 inches deep or something.
Mm-hmm.
They have an asphalt saw,
Mm-hmm.
and they just run it down the road, and then they push the cable down in it, and then they fill it with tar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they had run the cable TV down the center of the right lane on El Camino Real,
Mm-hmm.
and the water pipe, which was gigantic, at least 4-foot diameter water pipe, I mean, huge water pipe, was, like 8 feet below, as they do for really big pipes. And this guy's like 8 inches.
Mm-hmm.
Well, El Camino is shaped, here, I'll hold this up. El Camino is shaped like this. It goes down and then down. It makes this sort of stair step.
Mm-hmm.
They ran the pipe straight. So it turns out that at one spot on El Camino, the pipe was only 8 inches below the asphalt. And what happened is the saw cut ran this incredibly long groove down the pipe. It was maybe like 40 feet long.
Mm-hmm.
And you could see it get deeper and deeper and deeper and then shallower and shallower and shallower. So there was this huge long cut through the pipe.
Mm-hmm.
Never penetrated the pipe.
Mm.
And a year later, the pipe exploded and ripped open.
Hmm.
And you could see it had ripped open exactly on the saw cut from the cable TV.
Yeah.
And the water had blown out all the soil everywhere, so you had this incredible view. So, 30 seconds looking at the pipe, and you can tell exactly what happened,
Mm-hmm.
right? But, it took a year and a half for the study group and the committee and the consultants and the lawsuits to come to the conclusion that anybody who glanced at the pipe came to, which is that the cable TV guys sawed the pipe in half, and it didn't blow up for a while.
Funny.
And of course, it wasn't marked properly. It wasn't down where it should have been. And the cable TV guys, look, we just run this little saw down the road. It's not our problem that your pipe's in my way.
Mm-hmm. What's your pipe doing at 8 inches? It's supposed to be down 8 feet.
Yeah. I didn't saw through your pipe. Your pipe got in the way of my saw. So everybody sued everybody. I'm sure the lawyers made millions of dollars.
Probably more than the cost to repair.
Probably not. It was that well, not if you include all the brand new cars that were destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked to the owner of one car dealership because I knew him and he was a local guy, and I said it's a damn good thing you have insurance. And he says, yeah, our insurance provides total coverage for all the cars that are sitting on our lot on our property. But I sell so many cars that I had 200 cars parked on my on this other guy's property, and my insurance didn't cover those cars.
Mm-hmm.
I said, that's an awful lot of money to be out of pocket. He says, yeah, it's like an entire year's worth of profit from every one of my dealerships.
For the 2 cars? No.
2? For the 200 cars that he lost that weren't insured.
Oh, 200 cars that were over on the other lot.
Yeah. Oh,
sure.
No. Giant parking lot that wasn't his property.
Mm-hmm. Ouch.
I mean, what are the odds of a flood destroying cars in Menlo Park?
Mm-hmm. Right.
0. Well, 0.000. Anyway. Okay, I'll let you go. Funny stories.
Yep. All right. I will send Dick an email right now about the scheduling
Thank you,
tomorrow.
Bruce. Let me know.
Sure thing, Kim. Thank you.
And I'm going to hunt around for some stuff for your guy to animate.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be really good.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye for now.